Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Smith in the World panel. I'm Jason Bauer-Clapp. I'm Associate Director of Advising and Programs at Smith College's Lazarus Center for Career Development. This is the second of 4 Smith in the Virtual World panels. We're hosting this interterm, and we're so happy that you're joining us today. Welcome to students, to faculty and staff, family and friends, supervisors, colleagues, and to all others who are joining us today. We're excited to see you. Just for some background, Smith in the World is a long-running annual conference that we normally hold each fall. It's co-sponsored by the Lazarus Center for Career Development, the Provost's Office, and the Committee on Academic Priorities. And it's meant as a way to celebrate, reflect upon, and share Smith students' experiential learning. And by this, we're talking about internships, research, study abroad, and so forth. Experiential learning has traditionally meant on-site, place-based, hands-on work. But of course, the ability to engage in these types of opportunities changed drastically last spring, so this conference shifted too. Each of our panelists will be talking about their summer 2020 experiences working remotely in their internship roles, and we'll be focusing on the work, how they and their organizations adapted to this way of working, and how they made the most of the opportunities. And for the audience, I really invite you to pay attention not only to what each panelist did in their roles, but also just how those experiences have informed or influenced their next steps. So as you all know, today's theme is nonprofit, community engagement, and social impact. And our panelists are Elisabeth Nesmith, class of 2022, who interned with the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio, Rachel Iradukunda, class of 2020, who worked with Catholic Charities of Maine's Refugee and Immigration Services, and Sophia Casten, class of 2022, who interned with Power in Place. So just before we start, today's session is being recorded. For audience members, please keep your microphones muted. We'll have each of our 3 panelists give their presentations. Feel free throughout to submit any questions you have for presenters using the chat tool. And my colleague Brenda Jameson and I will monitor the chat for questions throughout the presentations, but we're going to wait until after all 3 presentations are finished before we share those questions and open those up to the panel. So with that, again, welcome, and I'm going to hand over to our first panelist, Elisabeth. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, can everybody see it? All right, great. Hi, guys. My name is Elisabeth Nesmith. I am a current junior double majoring in sociology and statistical and data sciences. And this summer, I had the privilege of interning with the Diversity Center of Northeast Ohio, which was a position that I got through summer on the Cuyahoga. So the Diversity Center is a nonprofit based in Cleveland with a mission of eliminating bigotry, bias, and racism, and creating communities where all people are connected, respected, and valued in the greater Cleveland area. So the Diversity Center's work is split between 3 main branches. There's school and youth programming, shift consulting, and lead diversity. So school and youth staff create and implement programs for students grades K through 12. And these programs center on education around leadership, diversity, acceptance, and really have the goal of empowering these students. Shift Consulting partners with local Cleveland businesses and companies and offers these trainings and workshops that are geared towards creating more equitable workplaces. And then finally, Lead Diversity is a 10-month process in which local professionals develop leadership skills and engage with the intersections of diversity and leadership on the backdrop of Northeast Ohio. So in my time at the Diversity Center, I worked most closely with the Director of Development. She was my supervisor. So that meant I was doing a lot of research on prospective partners and potential donors and sponsors for the Diversity Center. And one of the things that made my internship most impactful was that it coincided with the worldwide Black Lives Matter movements and this country's national reckoning with racial injustice and police brutality. And because this cause aligns so closely with the Diversity Center's mission, a lot of the projects that I worked on kind of emerged as a product of this need and the current times. So one of these projects was for development, and I was tasked with researching Cleveland, like businesses and companies that were headquartered in Cleveland, and looking at their websites and social medias to see if they had released any sort of statement in support of Black Lives Matter and the movements occurring around the country. And then I would compile these statements along with the contact information for the administrative staff at these companies, and put it all in a big spreadsheet with the goal that the Diversity Center would reach out to these companies and these contacts and be like, hey, we saw that you made this statement in support of racial justice, and we want to partner with you to help you uphold that commitment. And so that was one of my projects. I also joined the Anti-Racist Task Force, which was created this summer by several members of the Diversity Center staff. And we met several times to discuss and develop specific anti-racist policy for the Diversity Center to help the organization uphold and reflect their values internally as well as externally. And this was overall just an incredible experience. I feel like I learned so much about how anti-racism is defined and what concrete action it requires, especially in a nonprofit setting. And then aside from these two projects, I also did some projects on the program side of the organization, the school and youth programming and the shift consulting programs. And one of my favorites was I got the chance to contribute to the content of one of the shift consulting programs that was on the cycle of oppression. And so I was tasked with making an explanatory slide and writing about how the cycle of oppression functions in the life of a person with an oppressed identity and how it functions in the life of a person with a privileged identity. And this was overall just a great way for me to apply the critical thinking and the knowledge that I've gained from so many of my Smith classes. And it was also just really cool to know that some of my work and my writing was going to be featured in one of these trainings. And then finally, just one of the highlights of my time there, I had the chance in my last week of my internship to sit in on a virtual training that was being offered. So I got to see the Diversity Center's work in action. And this was a shift consulting program. It was centered on preparing employees to have conversations about race. And so this was a multi-part training, and so I only saw the first part. But at the end, there was a period for questions, and there were a few questions that were raised that just kind of seemed to come from a potentially defensive or resistant place, and that when I heard them, I just immediately raised my hackles up. But I watched as the Diversity Center facilitators didn't bat an eye, and they handled the questions with grace. They validated the questions without coddling the people who had asked them and without mincing their words. And it was just a really great illustration to me of the importance of the Diversity Center's work and the impact they have with engaging in these critical conversations and with a variety of populations. And so, and it also just showed the importance of what I had been learning and seeing all summer. And so because my internship was virtual, I had to make a few adaptations to my workflow. I had to learn how to schedule my time outside of meetings. And I had to figure out how to communicate clearly and advocate for myself because I wasn't in the same place as the rest of these people. And so, for example, midway through my internship, I had mostly been doing development projects, which was a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of research, which was important work and fulfilling work, but I also wanted to get some experience with the program side and what they were doing. So I reached out to my supervisor and we met and scheduled a way for me to work part of my time on development projects and part of my time on program projects and get a chance to work with a variety of staff members. Similarly, in staff meetings, when there was a meeting or an opportunity that was brought up that I thought sounded interesting or educational, I would just ask if I could join in and participate. And so learning how to put myself out there like that really made my internship more interesting and fulfilling overall, in spite of its virtual setting. So what did I take away from all of this? I definitely have a greater understanding of what the act and the art of facilitation is, how to initiate and mediate these really important but difficult conversations. And I also got to see people like the Diversity Center staff actively engaging in creating concrete solutions to inequality. And that was just a really inspiring and uplifting thing to see. I also, in my time getting to know the Diversity Center staff members, I got to meet one-on-one with all of them, and learning their stories and what had brought them to the Diversity Center really gave me a better idea of what my post-graduation plans could look like. A lot of them had gotten graduate degrees in things like facilitation or social work or nonprofit management. And so because I have a bit more direction in what grad school might look like for me. I also came away thinking a lot more seriously about education as a form of activism. You know, I've always told myself I don't want to be a teacher when I grow up, but I realized I had a very limited scope of what a teacher is and what a teacher can be. And interning at the Diversity Center helped me to realize that I feel really passionately about education as a form of activism and as a means of attaining justice and equity. And so now I'm thinking a lot more seriously about, you know, what ways could my career path potentially bring me to an educational space or an educational role that I did not previously consider. And then finally, being virtually in a nonprofit setting and getting to work with these incredibly impassioned and driven people whose interests and passions align so closely with my own really cemented for me the desire to pursue a career in nonprofit work. I realized this is the kind of work that I want to be doing, and this is the kind of people that I want to work with. And so getting that experience and the hands-on experience of being in a nonprofit setting and understanding the ins and outs of it was really valuable for me in what will hopefully be in my future. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Elisabeth. And welcome for some folks who just joined us during our first presentation. Thank you for being here. Just as a reminder, we are recording this session, so it'll be available for viewing later on. And we are asking everyone in the audience just to keep your microphones muted. And we are accepting questions for the panelists, for any or for all the panelists. You can use the chat feature for that. We're going to collect all the questions and then open up questions to the panelists after all three presenters have spoken. So just so you're aware of that. So next up is Rachel. So Rachel, I'll turn over to you.
Perfect. So hello, everyone. I'm also going to share my screen just so we're all on the same page. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. So hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Iradukunda. I'm a 2020 graduate. I'm one of those people who had the honor to graduate in the corona period, if you can call it, the non-traditional way. I was psych major, chemistry minor. My senior year, I lived in heaven. And I'm currently working as a growth strategy consultant up in Maine. So last summer, I interned with the Catholic Charities, Refugee and Immigration Services. And what they do, or their mission statement, is really to help new immigrants integrate in the community by supporting and providing different services that they need in order to transition easily in the new community. So some of those entailed citizenship and immigration services and job applications. So one of the things that a few things that I was doing during my time as an intern there, I worked closely with different clients and supported them through applying to jobs. Given the situation that we were in, a lot of them were laid off, so I was supporting them filing for unemployment benefits. In different individuals who also wanted to go through the immigration services, whether it's applying for green card or learning to take the citizenship test. Those are also things that I was helping different clients with. To put in perspective for you, I worked closely with different demographics of individuals. One client that I worked very closely with during my time as an intern, I will name her Stephanie just because that's my mom's name and I like the name. So she was in her late 60s. She had only arrived in Maine about 2 years ago. She has a very limited English capabilities. So I worked with her to apply for different jobs. And then when midway in the summer, she got laid off. So then I was assisting her file for unemployment rate. And during the internship, there are also different events and conferences that prior to the pandemic, these things would usually be held in person. But because of Corona, everything had moved virtually, obviously. So they had like Zoom yoga sessions that they were doing for three times a week, just to bring everyone together, kind of maintain that sense of community within the organization. So they still try to maintain that and they hold those virtually. So I was supporting with that in terms of like helping the clients with Zoom technical difficulties, those who couldn't easily get on Zoom just because they had that language barrier. I was also aiding with translating during the Zoom sessions as well. So it was a good experience, just that for those yoga sessions, for them to be there and share ideas of how they've been coping with the situation. It gives you a different perspective of how everyone was coping with the situation. Other things that I also aided with during my time at the Catholic Charities was also working closely, like I mentioned, with clients to help them with immigration services. There were different people who either need to be aligned with a lawyer to get started with their immigration papers. So with that, what the organization does is they have a list of lawyers who are providing free services or who are providing affordable services. So that when we have that list, then you could kind of connect the clients to those firms who could be willing to provide support in immigration services. So what did I take away from this experience? I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced while I was interning with the Catholic Charities was just the remote working environment. You know, you all know, we didn't have the luxury to be in an office setting where if a question arises during the week or the workday, you can run down the hall to ask your manager, this is what's going on, how could I solve it? So we didn't have that luxury because we were remote. So I think one of the things that I learned or kind of improved is my problem solving skills, because I had to figure it out on my own to some extent, because that element or that access of my manager or supervisor wasn't there directly. So I think that was one of the highest takeaway that I got. I feel like it made me become a better critical thinker and confident in my own abilities and understanding that I have tasks and I have responsibilities and I'm going to do whatever I can to deliver on these missions, and also seek help when I need to. So that's definitely one of my highest takeaway from the internship. another one too, just that I really experience that I cherish during this time is actually when I first came in America, this same organization is the one that also supported me to integrate in the community. So it was kind of nice for me to, it felt like it was my way of contributing to the betterment of the community. In a way, I felt like I was giving back to the community because I could put myself in the shoes of these clients that I was working with and visualize myself when I first came and the fears and the worries and the concerns that I had back then, and be able to be that light, be able to provide that support that these clients needed, just because I was once in that situation. And the same organization was really able to help me navigate through the new system and connected me with everything that I really needed to get started with the life in America. I recall when I first was introduced to the organization 9 years ago, they're the ones who helped me get a lawyer. They're the ones who helped me get started with high school. So it was really nice for me to now, 9 years later, to be in a position where I could contribute to this amazing vision and mission that they have to helping these new individuals integrate and become citizens in their new society. Yeah, so that's really all I have for me. If you are interested about learning more about immigration, Catholic charities, and for some reason it won't let me. Interesting. There you go. Some technical difficulties. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me. That's my personal email. I would love to speak of my experiences furthermore, or anything that if you need some more clarification, please feel free. Thank you. And I yield my time back to Jason. Thank you.
That was awesome, Rachel. Thank you so much. And again, if anyone just joined us while Rachel was presenting, please feel free, if you have questions for one or any of the presenters, please plug them into the chat, and we're gonna share those. We're gonna hang on to those and share those back with the presenters after our final presenter. And so, Sophia, I'll hand off to you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and link my slides in the chat in case I had a little bit of a Zoom phrase when I was practicing with Jason. So just in case something happens, you guys have access to my slides, but I'll still go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right, we're all good?
Looks good.
Okay, great. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Sophia Casten. I'm a junior at Smith College, majoring in government with a certificate in reproductive health rights and justice. And I am really excited to be talking with you today about my experience as a summer 2020 Power in Place collaborator. But first, some acknowledgements and some thank yous are due to the people who have really helped me get to where I am right now, speaking in front of you. So obviously, thank you to Smith College and the Lazarus Center for inviting me to speak to you today. I feel really special that I was nominated, and I hope we can all learn something. And next, I would also like to thank one of my mentors, Dr. Kimberly Scott, who is a Smith alum. This is a photo of us from when I interned at her Center for Gender Equity in Science and Technology at ASU, Arizona State University, after my first year at Smith. My experience at her center was quite honestly life-changing, and I take almost everything that I've learned from her staff, from her lessons, from herself, everything with my continuing through my academic and professional goals. So thank you, Kim. I asked to go last today in hopes that she could make this presentation, so hopefully she'll show up in the middle, but if not, it's recorded. And then also, obviously, thank you to Katrina Hahagos, who is the founder and director of Power in Place. I obviously wouldn't be here speaking with you today about my experiences if she hadn't hired me onto her team. So thank you, Katrina, for taking a chance on myself and all of the other collaborators. And I'm so happy that you could make it today. So first, I'll give you a quick summary of my internship at Power in Place, as well as my experience. So Power in Place is a project that aims to increase the participation of women in public office by holding up inspirational role models. So the people that we are trying to, or that Power in Place is trying to increase participation for, are folks like myself, young women in college, and even younger, so middle school and high school aged young girls who have any interest in public policy or politics or holding public office one day. And these inspirational role models are women who are in public office or hold any type of profession or job in the political world. So when I first started at Power in Place, I started a little earlier than everybody else just because of, or the majority of the interns, just because of my timeline and how it worked out for me. So I started off doing some administrative stuff for Katrina, making these lesson plans that had to do with video editing and website editing in an effort to kind of just make everyone's life a little easier when all of the interns started. And I really enjoyed doing that. And then once all of the interns started, I had the opportunity to write a couple of blog posts, which I'll talk about a little later. I also helped with some social media campaigns, some website building. I also facilitated 2 small groups. One of them was called Smash the Patriarchy, which was a mentorship mapping project. And then the other one was a media outreach group. I also had the privilege to attend the guest speaker series, which honestly was the highlight of my internship. I really enjoyed it, where about every week, a woman who had a position in the political field, whether that was public office or something a little more behind the scenes, would come and speak to us about her experience. And that was really awesome and quite honestly a privilege. And I'll talk a little bit more about my favorite guest speaker series. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about kind of the 3 key takeaways from my internship at Power in Place and my experience. So 1, how this experience has impacted my academic interests and goals. 2, how my perceptions of the field, the work, and the people shifted as a result of my time at Power in Place. And lastly, what questions remain about the work I was involved with at Power in Place. So first, how Power in Place has impacted my academic and career goals. This internship has truly solidified the importance of historical context for me in everything that I do. And I want to move through these so I don't get stuck and dive into something that I can't stop talking about. So I'll keep going. So for the second one, how my perceptions of the field, the work, and the people have shifted. I truly understand the importance of mentorship now. And I also recognize how personal passion and hobbies and skills inform the change that people make. And lastly, a question that I have that remains after my time at Power in Place, I have one bullet point here, but ends up being quite a few questions. It has to do with historically women's college graduates and current students and our representation within public office and the political field in general. So how Power in Place has impacted my academic interests and goals. So similar to what Elisabeth was talking about, this internship was taking place during a really important and interesting time in history. So not only was it taking place during an election cycle, but it was also happening during the reinsurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the rioting. And so I had the opportunity to write this almost call to action piece to the LGBTQ community about the importance of historical context and about protesting and specifically about Marsha P. Johnson, who was a Black trans woman who led the Stonewall riots, and how those riots and those protests inform the rights that the LGBTQ community has today. And in the moment, it was a really interesting and fun opportunity for me to be able to write this call to action piece. And it felt like it was very poignant with what was going on in the world. But looking back at it, or looking back on my piece, I realized that it relates more to the mission of Power in Place than I realized at the time. So Power in Place uplifts women political figures, and Marsha P. Johnson herself was a woman political figure. And a lot of the people that directed and led the Black Lives Matter movements and protests over the summer were also Black women for the most part. And they are also political figures. And so it was, I thought that was kind of cool now, almost, 6 or so months later, looking back on my piece and realizing that it really relates to the project's mission statement. And I've hyperlinked all of these images in my presentation, so you can click on them at any time or on your own time and read the articles. So that was a fun one, and it was really empowering to have that opportunity. So second, how my perception of the field and the people within the political field shifted as a result of my time at Power in Place. So I mentioned before how the importance of mentorship was truly solidified. And what I mean by that is the importance of mentorship beyond high school and undergrad. I thought that once you became a professional, then it was your chance to become a mentor, and you leave your past mentors in the past and move on. But it wasn't until Nadia Garnett spoke with us, and I believe Nadia Garnett works with political campaigns. I believe she might have been a campaign manager, but Katrina holds Nadia Garnett up as one of her personal mentors. And so it was really inspiring to see Nadia and Katrina interact on such a respectful and mutual level in front of all of the interns who are now mentees of Katrina. So it was really a full circle moment where Nadia got to see her mentee becoming a mentor, and all of Katrina's mentees got to see how proud Nadia was of Katrina. And it was really inspiring, and it truly opened my eyes to what kind of mentors I want to have in my life and how I want to carry my relationship with my mentors throughout my professional and the rest of my academic time at Smith College. Second, something that also really shifted my perception of the people in the political field was how their personal passions and skills that don't necessarily relate to politics inform a lot of the change that they make now. So I had the opportunity to work on a past interview that Katrina did with Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey. So Maura Healey has obviously faced some struggles in her professional career as a woman, and also the first openly gay attorney general to ever be elected in the United States. But something that was also a struggle in her personal life and professional life that you may not know is her height. So Maura Healey is 5'4" and loves playing basketball. Before she became a lawyer, she played professional basketball in Austria. And I always share this story because it always makes people smile, including myself. But Maura Healey, in this interview that Katrina did with her, she talks a lot about how athletics, sports, and teamwork, and her love for basketball, despite all of the challenges she faced while playing professional basketball, really inform how she does her work as the Massachusetts Attorney General, and how she runs an office, and how she makes decisions. And I just think it's so cool to see that, you don't always have to be so laser focused on one professional goal. You can still enjoy things in your personal life that have also, and you can relate the things that you've done in your personal life to your professional goals, even if they're not even closely related. So that's Maura Healey. That was so fun. And lastly, so the questions that remain unanswered for me after my time at Power in Place, in short, have to do with historically women's college graduates and our representation within politics. But that's not really where that question stops. And I kind of tried to get to the bottom of this question I created when I wrote this blog piece about historically women's college graduates in office. And that is a photo of Senator Tammy Baldwin, who is a Smith alum and was also the first openly gay senator to be elected in the US. And I guess what I want to know beyond what I've outlined in this article about where historically women's college graduates are represented is I want to know where historically women's college graduates and attendees are represented in places like Power in Place and like the internships that Rachel and Elisabeth have talked to us about. Where are we represented? What are we discussing? Where are we being dismissed? Where are we being listened to? Are we uniting? I want to know. And I don't have an answer. This is the closest I've gotten to it. And I truly want to discuss this with anybody who is interested. So I can also include my email address in the chat, and feel free to email me so we can continue discussions about this. But like I said, I have more than one question after this internship, but I wouldn't have stirred up a lot of these thoughts unless it were for Power in Place. So with that, thank you all so much. I, again, feel really special that I got to talk to you all, and I'll hand it over to Jason.
Amazing. Thank you, Sophia. And thank you, everyone, right? If we were all in a room together, this is the part where we'd all have lots of applause for you. We have to do it virtually right now, but that was amazing. Thank you so much. So we do have some questions that are coming in. So, and we have some time here. So we'll kind of feed some questions back to you all as presenters and invite you to kind of talk through to play with some of these ideas as you like. So I'm just kind of scrolling here. So this is a question kind of meant for one of you, but maybe all of you would like to jump in and talk about this a little bit. Just in terms of the staff, the team that you were working with and working for, just in terms of the demographics of the organization and the racial background, and just kind of how you thought about navigating that space and navigating your own identity in that space. Elisabeth, do you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for asking that. That's a really awesome question. And I think it fits in really well with my internship experience. So the Diversity Center staff is, I was pretty impressed. It was a fairly mixed racial breakdown of staff. There was a large number of Black and people of color who were on staff, particularly in on the program staff, like the people who implemented the programs for either students or companies. And so I think that's a really critical and important piece. But they're also, I mean, when you look at the higher administrative staff, and when you look at the board members for the Diversity Center, it does not reflect that same diversity. And so that was a topic that we talked about a lot in these meetings about the anti-racist task force, and how can the Diversity Center start bringing more people with more diverse backgrounds into their higher leadership positions, and then into kind of my experience with navigating my own identities overall with the events of this summer that really demanded, I think, a lot of white people to really interrogate their own whiteness. And so that was something that I was really grappling with over the summer, and that the Diversity Center kind of emphasized, because even as I was engaging in all of this work, I got to look at the content of a lot of these programs that they offer. And so many of them were teaching me about really important things, like responding versus reacting when somebody like calls you out, but where somebody says, this was kind of offensive, or this, you may be phrased this in a way that was not the best, and how to really gauge your reaction and allow yourself to take stock of your body and your mind before you respond. And I think that's something that we don't often think about as like our physiological responses to what we perceive as conflict. And that was, I'm a pretty conflict averse person, but you can't be conflict averse if you want to engage in these difficult discussions. So that was something that I really had to kind of challenge myself to work on. And that was something that that I was learning through my conversations with the facilitators and with reading the programs and their content was kind of, the work doesn't end with yourself. Like you can do as much like self-analysis as you can, but comes to a point where you have to engage with your own circles and your greater community and take on these conversations about race, about wealth inequality, about police brutality, about what makes a community safe. And so that was just kind of just a huge learning experience for me that was really pivotal in not only my academic growth, but also just personal growth. And that made me think a lot about, what kind of work do I want to do in this world? And then just one more experience that I had that kind of reflected this like navigation of identity. There was these caucus meetings that the Diversity Center kind of set up and started this summer as a result of the protests. And there was a white caucus meeting and a caucus meeting for staff of color. And so I unfortunately, like, because I'm not interning with the Diversity Center long term, I only got to go to the first caucus meeting for white staff. But we had read the first several chapters of the book White Supremacy and Me, and we had like detailed discussions and really kind of like dug into our experience and our naming of whiteness and white privilege. And so that was another really meaningful experience for me. And then finally, just back to the like diverse and demographic breakdowns. There's also quite a few queer staff members, which because it was nice because it felt like I was back in a setting that reminded me of Smith, and missing Smith was definitely on my mind. So that was just a good experience overall. But yeah, I hope I answered your question, Sarah. Sorry for going on very long.
Thank you. Sophia or Rachel, do you have sort of thoughts that you want to build on that regarding that question for your own organizations?
I talked a bit about this in my presentation, I guess not explicitly, but Power in Place is a woman-run and gender minority centered project. And so identity was kind of always this implicit and explicit part of my collaborator experience. And so it's nice to see, or it's nice to reflect on the internship, and also I feel like my time reminded me of the Smith community as well, and how there's always this implicit goal at Smith towards change and activism and support. And so it was really cool to have an experience during an internship where that was also implied.
Muted. I was muted. Just also something from the Catholic Charities. It was given that we are working predominantly with foreigners who are integrating the new community. The staff members, it was really diverse. So that's something that I appreciated, because it could be able to relate and reach to all of these individuals who needs our services. So I thought that was something that was really interesting, in terms of having staff members who are coming from diverse background, and we could be, it kind of created that space to be able to really reach to every single immigrant who needed our services and be able to provide that service that they needed in order to integrate in the community.
Great, thank you. So we'll try and batch a few questions here, kind of similar themes, and so a few people have asked just a bit about, for each of you, how you went about finding your internship, if there are any kind of highlights or notable pieces about the process for finding and getting yourself on board, and or if you have any advice to offer other students, particularly maybe people who are a bit earlier in their undergraduate career, for going about finding the type of thing that each of you found.
Sure, I can talk about my experience. So I originally was supposed to be participating in the Gene Picker semester in Washington program for the summer and the fall, but I had to delay my acceptance because of coronavirus. But I knew no matter what, I wanted to have an internship that aligned with my academic interests, which the semester in Washington program did. But I wanted to replicate that as much as I could without being in a formal program. And so I found Power in Place on Handshake, which is a great resource. Highly recommend it. And if you don't know how to navigate that, anybody who works at the Lazarus Center can help you, including I don't work at the Lazarus Center, but I can also help you guys navigate Handshake. It's a really great resource. It's becoming increasingly easier to use. And I guess my recommendation for younger students is to really work with the Smith Alumni Network. That's how I met Dr. Kimberly Scott. She is, I met her through the Smith College Club of Arizona, or a Phoenix, and, looked her up on LinkedIn, found her center, and that's kind of how I got that internship for my first summer. But yeah, I highly recommend using the Smith Alumni Network as well as other students. I worked with quite a few other Smith students at Power in Place, actually. So yeah, using the Smith Network, also the Small Liberal Arts College network is really good. You can access that on Facebook or really anywhere else, but places like that are the best.
Yeah, I would echo to that too. I think that, as you are starting your Smith career journey and you are trying to kind of solidify those area of interest to you, really make sure that you are utilizing Lazarus Center from the get-go. I know a lot of people shy away when it's your freshman year, sophomore year, but I think that's when you should be going to talk to them to kind of create this friendship with the Lazarus Center staff. That's how they can better be able to help you once they've seen you as a student when you first start the journey. So I think it's also really important to cultivate those friendships early on in your Smith career. Don't wait until you are a junior, like I did, to initiate this friendship. Really start like early on. It's gonna benefit you a lot.
Yeah, I would just jump in to echo what Sophia and Rachel have already said about really utilizing the resources that Smith offers through the Lazarus Center. I also found, I had kind of a roundabout way of getting to my internship. I found a posting on Handshake for another nonprofit internship position that was offered through somewhere on the Cuyahoga, which is the program that I did my internship through and that I would highly recommend. I believe that there is an info session on it February 11th. Yes, I'm talking at that too. So, so I found that posting and then I had applied and it like fell through because of COVID. But then one of Smith alums who's in the Smith Club of Cleveland and who's just like a powerhouse, her name's Marjorie Roth. She reached out and helped me to connect with the Diversity Center and sign up for that position. So yeah, definitely recommend. I think I learned the power of Smith's network this past summer, and so it's a really amazing resource. And so jump into that for sure.
Fantastic. Sophia, this was a question for you, and someone wrote, I love the term collaborator. Why that term? How did having that as a title shape your work with the organization as opposed to intern?
Yeah, in short, it shaped my experience a lot, and it really, I guess going back to what I was talking about earlier when I answered the previous question, talking about building a sense of community. And throughout the internship, Katrina really pushed the idea of collaborating and working towards a common goal together. And so, there's no Katrina also referred to herself as a collaborator, among all of us. So there's no leader, there's no boss, so to speak, like there's people we report to, there's people we share ideas with, but in order to cultivate, I guess, for lack of a better word, collaborative environment, we were encouraged to use that term, and we were also called PIPsters, Power in Place, PIP. So another term of endearment that I really enjoyed, and I think really shaped my experience at Power in Place positively, and gave context to a lot of the speaker series as well, like knowing that we were all viewing speaker series and attending them, and with this idea of collaboration, and the mentors and the speakers were there to collaborate with us as well in their professional and personal lives.
Great, thank you. I'm curious, as we as a country, we as a world kind of move into 2021 and move through and move past COVID and all that sort of thing. Are there any things that each of you think, just in terms of your own work style or the organizations you worked with, what are they or you gonna hang on to in terms of this remote way of working and what we've all adjusted to? Is there anything you think they're going to keep as part of their work?
Something that comes to my mind about having to transition to virtual in so many aspects of life, I think it's caused us to think a lot about accessibility and what events, what knowledge is accessible to whom, and I think that there is potential with even as things begin to transition back to in-person connection and interaction with the vaccine being distributed. I hope that we hold on to some of the use of technology to make these kinds of things more accessible.
Yeah, I think another thing too, that just open-mindedness and flexibility. I think that's one thing that everyone has gotten more flexible, not just with technology, but with everything and different ways that we can communicate. So I think just having that mentality of being open-minded and having a mind that's always willing to adapt to new situations, I think that's something that we are going to eventually, and the organization is eventually going to carry on moving forward, whether it's maintaining some parts of Fridays, they work from home to keep that. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I think that open-mindedness and flexibility is something that they're going to maintain and, maintain their organization.
Yeah, a big part of Power in Place is authentic journalism and portraiture. And I know over the summer, I struggled with the idea of being able to create authenticity online and kind of, having those emotional moments with an interview and whatever. And I really struggled with that. But now, I'm seeing it being done, and it was done over the summer. And so I guess, and also to add, this was the first time Power in Place had this many interns, which, going into it, this was a virtual experience. And so I guess I'm just interested to see how a lot of the hands-on and in-person portions of the work Power in Place does continues to grow, whether that remains to be online or grows more in person, and how the people that continue to be collaborators at Power in Place work around restrictions and take advantage of what they can do.
Great, Thank you so much. And I'm noticing the time, and so we're going to wind down for today. But again, thank you so much to each of our panelists. This was amazing, fantastic to listen to your stories and to your experiences. So we greatly appreciate that. To everyone in the audience, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. I hope you enjoy these all and found them really inspiring for sure. So our next Smith in a Virtual World panel is going to be focused on STEM and lab experiences, and that's going to take place next Friday, January 29th, again at noon Eastern time. And so with that, thank you again, and I wish everyone a fantastic day and a fantastic weekend. Take care.